Congratulations on all the good work in social services, and also congratulations on the FedRAMP certification. I'm pleased to introduce the next group, UIPath. In particular, we have Mark Gergerich, who I saw go through training at GSA and now become a productive developer. So glad to have Mark here join us. And also Jim Walker, Federal Chief Technology Officer and Director of Public Service Marketing. And Victor Weiss, Pre-Sales Engineer. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ed. So Victor, you're going to plug in, right? So I'm not even going to get up on stage because Victor's going to plug in here real quick. But this is the last session, and so I know no one will want to have questions. So I'm going to answer your questions based on the questions that have been asked today. We're in 56 federal agencies, and I'm happy to give you the list of all 56. Right? Of that 56, we're in AWS's FedRAMP Cloud and Azure's FedRAMP Cloud. We're in 18 defense, a couple intel agencies, and 36 civilian agencies, and one private nonprofit downtown called Bite Back. And I'm thrilled to say that they used our online academy, and they've graduated their very first student. Right? These are students that are downtown that are not homeless people. These are people who were working just like you or I, had something go wrong in life. There are 10 of them. I think 5 will ultimately pass using that online. But I was thrilled when one of them called just about 3 days ago and said, I passed level 3. I'm ready for that certification. And what we reminded him was one of our partners, Annika Systems, who you heard earlier today, had agreed in April to hire any of them that passed. So it's a great story for the downtown DC area, and Bite Back will start their next class in February, and they're always looking for corporate sponsors. An unsolicited plug for them. We're secure with RPA. Christine told you that her unattended bot that she has its own credentials running with them. And at Defense Logistics Agency, SafeNet, our partner, has a hardware solution that's giving them credentials with a piece of hardware that sits next to their bots. Some in DoD think they need that, some don't. I don't really care as long as you're providing secure robotic process automation. Right? That's the big key. When Christine was talking about the George Washington bot that she and I put in production down at NASA, that bot had its own CAC card because we did not want to use a login and password. We wanted to start out as secure as our normal staff. If you want to see an online marketplace, go to go.uipath.com. There's several GSA examples up there that you can run today, use to do searches for and things like that. At the USDA webinar, someone has been asking a question all day about citizen developers. So our Tuesday when we had the USDA and interviewed them, they were talking about wanting to encourage citizen developers. And I would ask all of you that have an iPhone or a Google Android type phone that use their app store, don't you like the fact that citizen developers make apps? But just like all three of those, Google and the iTunes store and everybody, you have to go through a rigorous process to get into the ecosystem. Right? That's what the USDA COE is all about. It is let anybody develop an app, but it must go through one place before it gets out on the ecosystem. Our product has 3 simple parts. It had 3 parts: the studio that you develop with, the orchestrator that you manage the bot with, and then attended or unattended bots. And I use the word had because just 2 weeks ago at our big global event, we announced some stuff. So we run a monthly user group and we listen to them. The monthly user group is called GovPath, uipath.com/GovPath, all government employees and contractors that work on government RPA. And they told us things like generating ROI is hard. Getting a pipeline is difficult. Figuring out what process to automate. And so 2 weeks ago, we announced the use of Explorer, which Explorer goes out, sits on your laptop, and tells you what you should automate. And that's nice, but we don't want the computer telling us what to do. So we also have another product now that you use with your SME that allows a SME to, someone asked earlier, did it didn't generate paperwork? So we will generate for you now your PDD, all the information about your product with your SME, not annotating in the code, but annotating in a support documentation so your change management stays right in stride with your current change management. And that's all using what we call Connector, which manages your pipeline. So before you had to build a bot, deploy a bot. What we've added to the product today is now the ability to manage bots, manage the pipeline of bots before production, and manage them after. Now that's all I want to tell you. What we're going to do today is we have two people, because we have two studios now. Studio X, one of our new products, is a lightweight, no-code tool that you're going to be able to put down at the citizen developer and say, build something that you need. Right? And then once you've built it, send it back to us to make sure it's strong. Or an enterprise-wide product that you want 1,000 people in your agency to use, we're still going to do with Studio. So we're going to show you both of those today. And I brought my grandkids. They're going to do it, right? So bring your kids to work day. Victor, working for UIPath, is going to show you the new product. And then very important, because the other question that came up all day long was jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, I'm here to tell you 13% of the federal government is eligible to retire today. So until we automate 13% of all the work, don't worry about jobs, right? In addition to that, somebody's got to manage the bots. Somebody's got to build the bots. Somebody's got to determine the process analysis for bots. Mark is one of those people, a GSA employee who has built bots that are in production at GSA, and he's going to show you the pieces and the parts of his as he goes along. If while they're going, I'd love for you to stump them, because millennials say they can't be stumped. Feel free while they're building these bots for you to stump them. Thank you.
Can you hear me? All right, all right, cool. So I know we all want to get back to partying in the streets, celebrate the Nats win, so we'll keep it short and sweet. And it's going along with the theme of citizen development. We'll see that it is actually pretty short and sweet to build automations with our new tool, Studio X. So we saw an example earlier with sam.gov. So I'll continue that theme and show how to build an automation here live with our new Studio X on sam.gov. So the scenario that I've envisioned is you have a list of vendors that you want to check on periodically. So maybe you have a list of names of the companies, and you want to check, one, their status, whether they're active or expired in sam.gov, but also get the point of contact. So you have a current contact information for someone at that company. So I built a little spreadsheet here that has one column of just our vendor names, and then two empty columns that we want our bot to fill in for us. So this is a perfect task for a citizen developer, right? Because it's not something that maybe hundreds of people across the organization are going to be doing, but it is a task that is super repetitive and is going to be done on a regular basis. So instead of spending, 30 minutes every Friday morning doing this, I build a bot in 30 minutes or in 5 minutes, as we're about to see, that does this every Friday for me. So I don't know if you can see those three columns, but we have vendor, status, and then contact, and only vendor is filled in. So what I'm going to do now is open up our Studio X. So if you haven't seen it before, here it is. It looks kind of like our studio, but it's simplified, a lot easier to use. So first thing we do is we have this application card. And so the application we want to interact with here is our browser. And I have it open to the SAM registration page. So back in Studio X, I'll indicate the application. Simply indicate it on the screen. The bot connects to it. And now we want to type into that search bar. So to do that, we have this type into option here. Activity pops into place, and I indicate the target. The target is this input box here. So once I indicate that, the bot will connect to it, and then finds it for us, and we want to type a value. So the value we're going to type here is the name of the vendor from that Excel sheet. So go to a text, and just to start out, I'll hard code a value for that one. That's UIPath. And then we want to hit enter at the end. So there's a send key option on the right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter. So at this point, the bot opens up the browser or finds it if it's already open, connects, searches for UiPath. Let's run that and see how it looks. So hitting run at the top left, the bot compiles the code, kicks into gear, and we see that it just typed that in, hit enter. Now we want it to select the search result. So we've got this click option here. Going to indicate that and tell it where to click. Just click on this whole bar here. So now backing up the browser, actually can just run it from where it is. So again, it'll search UiPath, and then it clicks on that. And then here we have the information that we wanted to scrape at the end. So finally, we'll add one more step in our StudioX workflow here, which is a get text. So to do that, we can hit a plus here, and we get a list of both common scenarios and activities that we can use. And one of them is called get text, which literally just gets text from the screen. And we tell it which text we want to get, so we'll tell it to get that government point of contact text. So I indicate that, the bot connects to it and saves it, and we want to give it a value to save to, so we can either save it directly to Excel or save it for later use. We'll save it for later use, and we'll just call it gov POC for point of contact. All right, so now that we've searched for the information that we want and read it, we can do something like either save it to Excel or send it in an Outlook email. It's very flexible, whatever you want to do. So I'll quickly walk through how to send that in an Outlook email. So to do that, we have this Outlook account card. Pop that into place here. And we have our default email account that I'm already signed into, which is fine. And then we want to send the email. So to do that, simply type the word send, and you get the send mail. And we can configure the body. So we want to send the contact info in the body of that email. So we go to use saved value, and we see gov POC from earlier. And then I will send this to myself. So I'll add some text here and send it to vic@uipath.com. Right on. So now I'll close the browser so we can see kind of a different look, because the first time we ran it, it was just connecting to an open browser. So now, by default, the bot will look for the browser if it's already open. If it doesn't find it, then it will open it and take it from there. So give it a couple seconds. It sees that the browser isn't open, opens it up, searches for the company, finds the result, does that data scraping, and StudioX pops back up, which tells us that the automation is complete. And so now, remember the last step was to send an email to vic@UIPath. So going to my inbox, sure enough, here it is. We have that government point of contact, Chelsea, with the address and email address and phone. And so that was, of course, we could also be saving this back to the Excel sheet from the beginning, send it via Outlook, send it to another bot even for another bot to further process, and so on. So the possibilities are kind of endless. But as you can see, this was a manual process that in just under 7 minutes actually complete with a few simple clicks. And so I just want to point out that this is actually available now. So if any of you guys have UiPath Studio and you have the community edition, you can just go over to settings and you might already have it installed without even knowing it. So in our change profile, you can switch between Studio and StudioX. No problem. Last thing on this topic is that we do have a page with a bunch of tutorials already up for StudioX. So if you're interested in learning more, just go on Google and type UiPath StudioX tutorials, and you'll see we have a bunch of different examples here with Excel automation, pivot tables, saving and moving attachments from emails, and so on. So before I move on, are there any questions about StudioX or citizen development in general? No? Okay. Right on. So
while there's swamping,
yeah.
we're going to swap out the system.
I'm gonna plug in.
session, most people came up to me afterwards going, is he really government? Right? And because they weren't expecting government employees to already be building their own stuff. So Mark, I'm excited for everybody to get to see what good work you do.
Thank you, Jim. All right. So I'm going to present a bot that actually just went live for GSA this week. It is an occupancy agreement entry bot. Basically, these occupancy agreements, as a background, they're kind of like the rent contract that GSA has with our other federal agencies, where basically lays out what the terms are, how much each agency owes us per month, et cetera. Like similar to like what you would lease an apartment. So this bot took quite a while to develop, and one of the main problem areas dealt with entering these rates. So on the screen, you'll see a sample rate page, and each one of those boxes has a dynamic identifier, and it changes every single one of these pages. There's no consistency to it, and working with IT, we found that this ID is stored in a backup database, and once we got access to that database, we were able to store these into a variable and create a dynamic selector, and that's that bottom line in this slide, highlighted in red.
Can I see that last slide for a second? Yeah, so the challenge here was that every time this page loads, you don't know which rows are going to be there. They could be completely different between each run, between different accounts. So the typical way we build selectors by just indicating like we showed a minute ago wasn't working. We need a more advanced way to actually identify which box we want to update, because this table has no reliable way of loading on the screen.
Okay, so from here, I'm going to build this functionality out. I preloaded the database connection part because the SQL and the string that's needed to connect to our backup database is a little too long to have memorized. So okay, so first I'm going to do a login because the bot does not have my credentials stored. Where'd it go?
Let's zoom in a little more. Control scroll.
So this one will be the login window.
Yeah, so what Mark is building is a prompt for the user. So this is an unattended bot, and he's building the login scenario. So when the bot kicks off, it's going to show the user a dialog that says, please enter the login ID, and then enter the password. This is working.
All right, so there's our login and password. From there, it's going to connect to the database, and I will do a message box to show a sample output from the database.
That's good, thank you. Yeah, so the connection to the database is solving that challenging selector issue we saw. So because that page is dynamic, we need to use the information we have to figure out exactly what's going on the screen and which boxes we want to interact with.
And I will run this.
This is some next level stuff.
All right, why did it stop?
Yep, so the database activities we see here are built into UIPath. We have a package called database activities out of the box, and it has anything you would need to interact with to send and receive data to and from different kinds of databases. Did we get booted? No, we're still in. All right, so the bot kicked off. First, we see that prompt for the attended bot. It asks for the username and password. Once it receives those, what's the next step, Mark?
It's going to do a pop-up. So this is the database. The bot I'll next program what it's going to pull out of this output from the database.
Yeah, so it's just showing us That's not necessarily a step that would be in production, but it's just to show us what the bot is receiving back from the database that we can use to build that selector. So the bot's going to take that data, parse it, and then use it to identify what's on the screen.
And I'm going to do a for each row to loop through the output from the database. And this is how it's going to pull out that unique identifier. All right. I'm quickly going to assign the two variables. Return.
Show of hands, who here has used UiPath Academy? See, awesome. Yeah, so all of this stuff is available on our Academy online. We have several different tracks you can take. We have the RPA starter, just to get a general awareness, what it's all about. Then we have the business analyst track. We have the infrastructure track for engineers setting up infrastructure, technical track, which has foundational training as well as orchestrator training, and then of course an advanced training that gets into our advanced development framework. So Mark is a beast and completed all of that.
Right. So now we have it's going to loop through, store the unique identifier to these two variables here, and that's what the row command, or row activity, or not activity, command will pull from that specific field from the database, rent component and rate rent. And those are specific columns within that table. But from there's another identifier to further split it out.
So this is an if condition. Basically, it's building in some logic. It says, checking if the operation cost ID is 16, then we are going to assign that to a variable called operating cost comp ID. Right, so this is all part of building the selector that we're going to be using to identify that field.
Now our variables are assigned. I have to zoom out a little bit. And then I'm going to add one more message box so you can see the parsed out data that this query, that this if then determined.
Yeah, so these message boxes are really useful as you build an automation. You want to check what the values are throughout. Now you can have different values that are going to be changing and you want to check them. Or even just sending a message to the user as the bot operates about what's going on, or maybe to collect some more information, kind of in a human in the loop kind of handoff between bot and user, and then back to the bot.
All right. So now I'm going to demo.
So again, this is the attended step. Mark's logging in. Bot uses those credentials, gets into the system.
So there's the output, and next there's a unique identifier that we're going to use for the selector pulled out of that database output.
Yep. So the logic that was built was able to parse out the selector that we need. So in UiPath's latest release, we expanded our attended bot capabilities. We already had all these things that we're seeing today, but now we have cool things like a form builder where you can use a form that has whatever fields you want. You can kind of drag and drop them into place to better collect more specific information that the user would pass on to the bot. Another awesome feature that we added to our attended bots is that as they're running, you can also run any number of background processes with the bot at the same time. So the bot is concurrent in the sense that it's working in the foreground on a user interface, maybe on its own or maybe handing back and forth between the user, but it also has windows that are minimized or just in the background being worked upon by the bot at the same time. And there's no limit to the number of background processes that can be run at once by an attended bot.
All right, so my next step I just added is how we're going to type in the new date. And the basically same functionality would be for the date and the rate. But I'm just going to demo entering in this new date. So I did a type into, and it has to delete the previous date. So those are those delete commands. And then it's adding in the new date.
Yeah, and those delete things look kind of scary. You know, it's like there are a bunch of brackets and Ks and parentheses, but you don't have to actually type those. As we saw, Mark just hit a plus button and selected delete from the drop-down, and it popped into place.
So now I'm typing in what the date I want to input into those fields. So I'm going to do June 2030. You can see currently the date is June of 2025. But before I can go there, I have to update, before I can run it again, I have to update the selector to use the new variable we added. Hopefully everybody can see that. And now I'm inputting the new variable to replace that unique identifier.
Wanted to add one thing that Jim touched on earlier, which is our new Explorer products. So the Explorer family has several different key capabilities, and the one that Jim highlighted was the ability for a user that wants to submit an idea for automation to record it quickly on their desktop and automatically generate documentation around it. What you left out, Jim, that I think is key to highlight, is that not only is it limited to documentation, but it actually generates a workflow. So you can have a user that has never even opened UiPath Studio before, go through and highlight a process, clicking through, typing through, opening whatever apps are relevant, and hit go, hit done, and it will generate a workflow in UiPath Studio. So this sequence that we're looking at that's built here will be automatically generated from a user that's never even opened or never even installed the application. So it's a really powerful tool. And that's just one of the 3 Explorers that we have. The other 2 are more around process mining. So they actually are the ones sitting on computers. We have our Explorer Enterprise, which monitors for days or weeks and generates data around the processes that are being run, different variants they can take, and all kinds of high-level, drill-down, low-level metrics around what the real opportunities are to automate. The Process Gold is a company that we acquired, and they're not limited to one user's workspace, but they work across workspaces, across, sorry, are you right? The Process Gold is across teams, across users, so it's a back office monitoring of logs that really enables insight to processes that are not limited to just one user.
All right, so now the bot is ready to run and update this expiration date.
So what step is it on now? You want to run it?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So bot kicks into gear. In a second, we'll see the prompt for the credentials, or sorry, putting in the username and password.
There we go.
So if you can tell, we're pretty excited about all the new products we have. Clearly, we don't have time today to show everything, but if you have Jim's contact or mine or Brenda's here, we'd be happy to do the demo and a deep dive on any of the new products and features that we have.
All right, so now it's pulling the database. There's that pop-up again. Here's the parsed out unique identifiers, and from there, updating the date, updates. Oh, I got logged out.
All
right.
Yeah, so this is why we build in error handling, exception handling, and so on. So the bot can detect that message and either re-log in or get the right person to get on the job accordingly. All right, we're back in. Gonna kick it off again.
We gotta close the other ones. All right, let's try that again.
intended user handoff. Username and password. Bot scans the page, finds the right info we need to get the selector, pings the database, gets the response that it needs, parses out the right info, and then there we see it finally finding that correct field and updating it. The page reloads.
Now it's going to update the one below it. There's a brief delay because this application test environment isn't the best.
Yeah, luckily the bot has no lack of patience. Can sit here and wait. Well, we don't have to. I guess we do have to now, but in a production environment, there wouldn't be a room full of people waiting on the bot.
Mark, how many years have you been a developer at GSA CIO?
So a year and a half about. Got trained, or guess passed that advanced course in May of last year.
And you're a CFO employee, right?
Yes.
Right. So that's important when you start to look at who to be retrained. You don't have to be a 10-year, 20-year developer in the CIO's office. Mark's a CFO employee. And they elected to say, let's use some of our subject matter experts to build processes that they understand and know. Right? And so a year and a half. And how long have you been full-time doing this work?
Just a couple months.
Yeah, so don't think that robotic process automation and UIPath and quite frankly others are going to take you years and years and you need a major senior developer. RPA is really something that's ready for somewhere between your CIO's office and your front office business.
Right on. So yeah, that's the demo. As we saw, it only took a couple minutes to do what is a pretty complex task, and typically for automating screens like we saw with Studio X, you don't have those kind of more challenging selectors to deal with. But when you do, we always have a way to make it happen in a robust way. So are there any questions about what we saw or any other of our new products that we have out there? And of course, feel free to hit us up for a follow-up demo. We'd be happy to do a deeper dive. Anything that you've seen today or anything else?
Very good.
Sounds
If
good.
you would, a round of applause for these
right.
guys. Do it a live
Thank
demo.
you.